Well, I have to say that when your diary says private view at the palace, you don't expect it to literally mean just you. No public, no queue, no waiting. Sadly, no Kate either. She sends her love and a little bit of envy. The sunlight is just about dancing on the golden gates of Buckingham Palace behind me. And beyond them, a rare privilege. Inside Buckingham Palace, a spectacle is on display. It's not the formality of a state banquet or the staged choreography of changing the guard, but brushstrokes, stories, snapshots of royal life that span nearly 4 decades. This is the world of the King's Tour Artists, an exhibition unlike any other. It's a visual diary of His Majesty's journeys across continents, captured through the eyes and the brushes of painters entrusted with the royal view. Welcome to the Royals with Roya and Kate from the Times and Sunday Times. I'm Roya Nika. Finally, past security, through a maze of hallways, I'm now in the incredibly opulent surroundings of the state rooms at Buckingham Palace. There are paintings of all sizes on the walls around me because since 1985, 43 artists have joined King Charles on 70 royal tours across 95 countries. And some of these 70 works, which are normally on display in royal residences, are on view for the very first time. These are the works of the artists who have accompanied the King on royal tours. And if you're expecting glossy portraits, well, think again. To walk me through this extraordinary, unique exhibition is the woman who helped shape it, Kate Heard, the Senior Curator of Prints and Drawings at the Royal Collection Trust.
Hello.
Hello, and it's an absolute joy to be here. So Kate, can you start by talking me through this picture here, which is John Ward. Now, John Ward, if I'm right, was the first tour artist to join the then Prince of Wales on tour in Italy on Royal Yacht Britannia. So what are we seeing here?
Well, you're seeing a view from Britannia.
Right.
You're right. John Ward is the first tour artist. In 1985, in May, there was a royal tour to Italy. John Ward was asked to accompany the King. The King asked him, Prince of Wales then, to accompany him. And you see here a view looking out from Britannia, from the afterdeck, so the back of the ship, looking out over the ocean.
John Ward on the tour to Italy, was it to different parts of Italy, or?
Yes, this was an Italian-focused tour. Some of the tours that you see here go to different places, to a number of different countries and regions, but the Italy was just Italy. But John Ward did most of his paintings in Venice.
And how did John Ward come to be on the Prince's radar? Because am I right thinking that he had sketched the royal family up at Balmoral during the 1960s?
Yes, John Ward had worked for the late Queen and had done a number of views of the royal family, portraits and views of Balmoral. So he was already known to the Prince of Wales. So the Prince of Wales invited him to accompany him on the tour and started this incredible tradition.
Why? Why did the Prince of Wales decide he wanted to have these tours captured? Because, of course, he'd been on plenty of royal tours before. I mean, he'd started quite young. What was it that he suddenly thought, I want to have these unique moments captured on canvas?
By taking an artist with him, His Majesty is acting as a patron of artists, so providing an opportunity for those artists, but also creating a different sort of visual record of the places that he's visited. And the artists are given a very broad brief. They're not told what they need to draw or paint or sculpt in one case. They're told to use that tour as a means to inspire them in whichever way they choose.
So they have total creative freedom.
They have complete creative freedom.
And tell me, here, so one is by John Ward and one is the then Prince of Wales, now the King's attempt at it.
Absolutely. The watercolour next to it is, as you say, the Prince of Wales, now the King's own watercolour of the same view, made on that same tour.
So was he also learning as well? Did he take lessons from? Because I mean, Edward Sago very famously used to teach Prince Philip and I think occasionally Prince Charles. Would he sort of look and maybe sort of have a little bit of tuition from John Ward on tours?
We know that in the early tours, and His Majesty would paint alongside the artists. A number of those early artists have described that experience and exchanging techniques and discussions of art. So yes, as the pace of tours has become more and more busy, the King has less opportunity to do that now. But certainly in those early tours, the King would paint alongside artists and they'd discuss art as well.
Now, John Ward was a very famous portraitist. He actually painted both my parents, so I love to see his work. Did he ever do royal portraits of...
He has done portraits of royal sitters, but for the Italy tour, it is views of Italy, it's views of Venice, and very dominated by views of Britannia.
So we're surrounded by beautiful artworks here. So Kate, these are around 72 pictures, drawings, paintings that are from tour artists, but these are the ones that the king has personally chosen for his private collection. Can you tell me a little bit about where these normally hang and what they tell us about the king's taste?
These are normally hanging as His Majesty's private property in His Majesty's private residences, and you can see the real variety of them. You can see the variety of approach, of technique, of subject matter. It's really exciting to be able to put them on display. At least one work from each tour goes into His Majesty's collection. There are over 300 works by tour artists in His Majesty's collection. So we have chosen 72 of those works by tour artists to illustrate the project.
And these that are in His Majesty's private collection, where are they displayed normally?
They normally hang in the private residences.
Okay, so all across the residences?
All across, yeah.
Which is rather nice, because you think that as he sort of goes from residence from Sandringham to Windsor to Balmoral to Birkhall to Highgrove, there are memories of all those different trips.
They're incredible sort of, as you say, memories, sort of views of those places that have been visited on those official tours.
What do you think it is about artists with their, whether it's their canvas or in the case of Fraser Scarf now with his iPad, the first digital tour artist, what is it about their ability to sort of move on these trips that gives them a sort of edge to capture things that sometimes perhaps the photographers and press don't see?
I think that the fascinating thing here is that each artist is chosen to do it in their own way. So artists have sometimes made the works that you see around you on site in, the moment as the tour is moving, and the tour moves very, very fast.
It does.
Other artists have created sketches and photographs and then come back and worked up their works in the studio. But each artist has chosen to show that tour in a different way, which is absolutely fascinating. So you see you see something of the artist's choice as well as the tour itself. Does
the different sort of selection, I know these are just sort of, a handful of some of the pictures and paintings and drawings that the king has in his private collection. Do they speak to a story of the king's taste or things that he's looking for when he's choosing ones for his own collection?
Well, His Majesty chooses the tour artist each time.
Yeah.
So you can see that here, but you can see the real variety. You can see the variety of medium, you can see the variety of subject matter, and the variety of approach to capturing the subject matter. So it's a really rich and varied collection.
And we know he's a great patron of the arts. I mean, he's patron and president of so many different arts organisations. But how do the artists that are chosen for each tour come onto his radar? How does he find out about them?
In many different ways. Some artists word of mouth, some artists he'll encounter their works.
Of course, he's got his drawing school as well.
Exactly, and Fraser Scarf is a member of staff, the most recent tour artist, a member of staff at the Royal Drawing School.
We were with him on tour to Italy, and we spoke to him about how he'd come. It was interesting how he'd failed to get into loads of very sort of prestigious art schools when he was young, given up, and then it was a full scholarship to what was then the Prince's Drawing School, I think, that got him back into it.
Yes, and that wonderful work recently, that recent tour is absolutely fantastic.
So Kate, we're just going to have a little potter through some of these. Talk to me about this picture. This is the Galapagos Islands, is that right?
Yes, this is by the artist Richard Foster, made on a tour to Chile, Brazil and Ecuador in 2009, and you see their Royal Highnesses, as they were Prince of Wales, Duchess of Cornwall, looking out over the ocean, and Richard Foster's just beautifully captured the bright light, the textures. It's wonderful.
Was this during an engagement or during a rare quiet moment?
This was during an engagement, during a visit to North Seymour Island, so there were lots of people there, but that just wonderful moment of reflection.
And this picture here, I'm just going to move to this one here, because now this is by which artist?
This is Daphne Todd.
And there's something quite special about this, because she had to be very fleet of foot in capturing this, but also waiting for the right weather conditions. So where are we here?
This is looking out at Mount Kilimanjaro, and this is one of the works that's made on site. Some artists choose to work on site, others will work up in their sketches when they get back to the studio. If you look closely at this, you can see it's made on two smaller boards.
Oh yes.
So the artist has prepared two boards so she can work and be portable. She talks about how she used tissues, because paint takes a while to dry, to separate those boards for transport. But she wanted to paint the mountain, and it was covered in cloud, and so she painted the foreground just knowing that it would appear and the clouds parted at the right moment. So a real sort of triumph of having faith that it would appear.
Because I remember talking to Fraser Scarf, and we're going to look at one of his pictures at the end. He talked about how incredibly fast you have to work as an artist on tour, because you either have to advance before the engagement, and then sometimes, the engagements are very quick and you blink and you miss it. There are those moments where they, whether it's waiting for clouds to part or waiting for that moment behind the scenes, they have to adapt to conditions and the moving pack.
Yes, a lot of the artists have talked about how quickly the tour moves and reacting to that and how that's proved a really interesting exercise for them. In this case, we know that Daphne Todd wanted to capture this view, so she moved separately from the tour. She went to specifically capture this view as part of the tour, so she had a little bit more time, but she just had to wait for those clouds to part and capture Kilimanjaro.
It's absolutely beautiful. Do we know where this one hangs?
Just like others
in a royal residence.
Yeah.
Okay. We're looking at two pictures, both from the same year. One in Kenya, state visit 2023. One in Germany from the same year. Of course, the German state visit that year became the first outgoing state visit of King Charles's new reign. Of course, we were supposed to have gone to France first, but there was some rioting, so Germany became the first. It was a bit of a coup. This is by Tim Scott Bolton. So was this during an engagement when, I remember there was a very grand ceremonial welcome at the Brandenburg Gate, I remember it. Did he do that then, or did he come back to it?
It's one of a number of views that Tim Scott Bolton captured of Berlin, particularly during the tour, and he talks about how it was a very wet tour, it was very rainy.
Hamburg was very wet.
It's a challenge for a watercolour artist, but
yes.
He's really captured that beautiful sculpture on top of the Brandenburg Gate. It's a wonderful watercolour, and it's nice to be able to display it so high, so you get the sense of looking up to the quadriga.
Same year, very different kind of state visit that we did to Kenya. So tell me a little bit about this artist, and I remember this engagement actually. It was with the Queen feeding baby elephants. It was very sweet, and then the King turned up, and it all became, it was very sweet. But tell me a little bit about the artist and how they managed to capture it.
This is in Nairobi National Park. Philip Buta, the artist, this was his first engagement as a tour artist, and he captured a number of things, but this beautiful oil on a gesso board, if people look at it closely, it's got this wonderful smooth texture to it. He's really captured the wonderful sort of scene of the elephants playing.
There were a lot of giggles during that engagement. There was a lot of giggling from the Queen and feeding I think a milk bottle to one of the baby elephants. It was very, very sweet, and the King really enjoyed it too. Finally, Kate, I just want to touch on this painting here by Susannah Fiennes. And this is from a very important tour in 1997, of course, when the then Prince of Wales went and attended the handover from Britain back to China of Hong Kong. So tell me about this picture by Susannah Fiennes and what we're seeing.
So this shows two yachtsmen on Britannia lowering the flag. One you can see lowering the flag, the other saluting. Britannia obviously decommissioned after this tour, so this is a wonderful capturing of life on that ship.
That trip was, of course, very emotional for so many reasons. The Prince of Wales handed over, effectively attended the handover of Hong Kong back to China, and of course, final farewell to Royal Yacht Britannia, which was such an important part of the royal family's life. Find out a little bit more about that trip. I'm going to go and have a chat to Susannah now. Now, there are very few places in London where you can step outside of a palace straight into a royal park. Here we are now in Green Park, just by Calendar Gate, and I'm here with the wonderful Susannah Fiennes, who's one of the tour artists that I've been looking at inside Buckingham Palace. Welcome, Susannah.
Thank you, Roya. Thanks for having me.
I've just been looking at your fantastic yachtsman on Royal Yacht Britannia. Tell me a little bit about that picture, which tour it was on, and how you came to do it.
Thank you. I was invited to go in 1997 for the Hong Kong handover, and we were based in the Royal Yacht. You have to say in the yacht because it's a palace.
Wow.
It was considered a palace,
Okay.
so in the yacht rather than on the
And
yacht.
what was it like being in Royal Yacht Britannia?
I can't begin to describe it. It was slightly a time warp. I think it probably hadn't been redecorated since the 1950s, but it had enormous charm. The bed had a horsehair mattress.
Gosh, okay.
There was a proper bathroom to each cabin with a very hot towel rail. I remember burning my leg when we were at sea because it was quite rough.
Gosh.
And it was complete luxury. There were about 200 sailors looking after us.
And on that tour, obviously a very emotional tour for so many reasons. The Prince of Wales, as he then was, went and did the handover of Hong Kong from Britain back to China. And also, for so many reasons, we saw the decommissioning of Royal Yacht Britannia very soon after that. How did you come to be involved on the Royal Tours?
I was first invited in 1995 because a friend of mine from art school, Emma Sargent, had travelled with the then Prince to Morocco, I think, and he asked her to recommend somebody, and she never told me that she'd given him my name. So I got a call out of the blue from one of his secretaries inviting me to go to Oman.
Wow.
In 95 it was the 25th anniversary of the Sultan's reign, so that was the reason for the trip, and off I went with no experience of anything like that, and not much preparation except for the very kind team, because you're very much part of the team.
Yes.
And the private secretary just said, do whatever you like, paint whatever you like, and then the then Prince will get to choose what he wants.
Let's go back to Hong Kong. Talk to me a little bit about what that trip was like, the kind of things you saw, how you were working while you were there.
It was extremely challenging, and I think all the other tour artists will agree that that's the one thing you have to deal with. You're very jet lagged. I think it was a 7-hour time difference arriving in Hong Kong after an overnight flight, and you're straight to work, and you haven't got a lot of time. You want to take advantage of the opportunity. All the staff are very helpful. Everybody says, in fact, that very first moment I took a boat over to Kowloon and painted the Royal Yacht in situ with the Hong Kong skyline as the backdrop. And then you have to turn up and change for lunch with the dignitaries who are coming on board. So you have to suddenly be into a different gear.
And are you having lunch with the Prince at the time?
Very often, not always.
Yeah.
It was flexible.
Yeah.
Sometimes you had to step in for somebody who'd cancelled. Other times you just went off and had lunch with the staff in the mess, and that was fun too, because they were all incredibly supportive. Because as an artist, you're normally working alone. I had a studio in Clapham, and suddenly I was part of this enormously well-oiled machine where everybody was focused on the Prince being able to do his job to the best of his ability. And the whole of the world spotlight was on Hong Kong at that moment.
Yes.
It was an event
It was a huge moment.
of such significance.
Everyone remembers that ceremony and the Prince of Wales there and the flag being
the
lowered
rain.
down and the rain.
Yeah.
The lowering of the flag, the yachtsman, that painting, I mean, it's so evocative of the lowering of the flag that we saw at the handover ceremony. Tell me how you came to what the idea behind painting that painting.
I've got shivers actually even remembering it, because it was so moving, because actually it was, as you said, it was the end of the Royal Yacht as well as the end of Hong Kong.
Yes.
So there were so many levels in which it was emotional and significant. And every evening there was the ceremony of the lowering of the flag, with the band playing these very poignant naval or military tunes. It was really quite haunting, and so I saw these sailors every night, and I think there was symbolism there, but there was also the structure. I did them actually, those pictures, back in my studio, possibly from memory, possibly from drawings.
Yes.
And I just loved the way they were reaching up with I love the structure of arms and the way that you get the shapes in between. So I was actually, if you look at those paintings, they're basically the white paper, and I just painted around them.
Wonderful. Now, all the paintings that are on display as part of the exhibition are all normally in His Majesty's royal residences. Do you know where the yachtsman normally hangs?
Do you know, I don't. It may be in an attic. I don't know.
I doubt it.
I actually don't know. And to be honest, I'd forgotten which ones from each trip that he'd chosen. So it'll be fun to see the exhibition. I haven't seen it yet.
And of course, you went to Oman as well as the Falklands. During those trips, do you have total free rein to do what you want? The King doesn't give you any instruction as to what to paint or what to capture. You're just there doing your thing.
His only words to me when I first met him on the airplane: do whatever you like. And
That must be wonderful as an artist to hear from the future king.
Well, it's a mixed blessing actually, because in some ways it would be much easier if he just said, paint all the people on the trip, but given such free range, you really are under pressure, because you don't want to miss anything, and sometimes there's a lot of waiting around. So you might be sitting in a waiting room. In Oman, I drew the Minister for Water Resources, who we were all waiting while the then Prince was meeting with the Sultan. And I just took that, you had to seize any opportunity. But yes, having that freedom was an amazing privilege.
And you mentioned the pressure of being a tour artist. I mean, I've been on a lot of royal tours with the King and the Queen. And there are a lot of waiting around, but sometimes the tour moves very fast from engagement to engagement. What's it like? What are the challenges of being a tour artist when things are moving kind of at pace and don't always go to plan?
I can't even begin to describe how stressful it can be, because on the one hand, you're trying to do your work.
Yeah.
You're a professional, and you're very conscious that you want to give back as much as you've received. And on the other hand, there's a motorcade waiting, and woe betide if you miss the motorcade. It never did happen to me. I was always travelling in a car with the doctor.
Right.
And he always had to travel immediately close up to the then Prince. And so
that's a good way of keeping up.
Yeah, and he looked after me. He was such a gentleman, and he always looked after me. So I stuck with him. And then and then the heat. The other thing was a real challenge. In the desert in Oman, I hadn't prepared for the fact that doing watercolours in probably 40 degrees, it is a very different challenge, because the water evaporates at such a speed. Very different from Clapham.
Yes, I think very different to a Clapham studio, exactly. The Omani desert.
I had to adjust to that, but in a very short time. Meanwhile, I'd be handed a gin and tonic by the bodyguard.
So not bad working conditions.
There were some very, very, very comical moments and thrilling moments amongst the challenges of doing my job. We were all there doing our job.
And of those 3 tours you did, Hong Kong, Oman, the Falklands, are there any paintings or sketches that are particularly special to you, that you particularly remember enjoying doing?
Well, I think of the 3 trips, that the Hong Kong one was the most...
historic.
I think
so emotional.
I think the historic value of it was unparalleled. And so I probably... There's one I did actually of the royal yacht. She was so beautiful. I feel very attached to that. I think he has that picture. And then when I got home, you see, I had a lot of these drawings and watercolours that I could then use to develop into bigger paintings.
Just finally tell me, how special is it to be exhibited at Buckingham Palace?
Well, I don't think it's really hit me yet, because I haven't seen the exhibition, but I think it will be an enormous excitement. And I can't begin to say how much it meant to have that, as I wasn't so young, but to have that sort of endorsement and the trust that the then Prince put in the artist coming on the trip. He didn't know anything much about me. And it gave me such opportunities to develop my work. And I think if other people can be encouraged to support young artists in their endeavours, so much the better.
Well, I've seen the exhibition. You're going to see it later this week. You're in for a real treat when you see it, and your painting looks absolutely beautiful inside. Susannah Fiennes, thank you so much for joining me on The Royals.
Thank you very much, Roya.
It's easy to think of royal tours in headlines, the diplomatic handshakes, the speeches, the motorcades. But this exhibition at the Palace shows us something entirely different. It shows us the quieter side, the pauses, the people, the moments you'd miss if you'd blink, despite what's going on outside in Green Park and all the hubbub here. The King's Tour Artist runs at Buckingham Palace throughout the summer, and if you're in London, it's well worth a visit to see it. My thanks to the Royal Collection Trust for letting me walk through this exhibition all alone, which was a real privilege and one I won't forget in a hurry. I'm Roya Nikar. Thank you for listening to The Royals, and thank you to the artists who saw what the cameras didn't.